Leadership, a simple concept that moves the world, writes history, and drives the lives of millions of people around the world. This is a story that celebrates our leadership and makes us proud of who we are. Today, Latino Leaders Magazine crosses the path of the same leaders we've been interviewing for more than 18 years, making all of us that work at Latino Leaders Magazine proud of our past and excited about our future. Latino Leaders Magazine is confident that we will continue to inspire the leaders that will write the future pages of our history. We have witnessed the enormous potential and value of Latino leaders. Now, Latino Leaders Magazine wants to continue to serve them by connecting these leaders and thus inspiring the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host and publisher of Latino Leaders Magazine, Mr. Jorge Ferraiz.
Hello, I'm Jorge Ferraiz, publisher of Latino Leaders Magazine, and it's my privilege and honor to welcome you tonight to the stream of the 2020 Chicago Maestro Awards for Leadership. This is going to be our 12th year in Chicago, this beautiful and fantastic city that has brought to us many friendships and many stories of leadership. Tonight, we have 4 outstanding leaders, 4 stories that I'm sure will impact you in a very positive way. 4 Latinos that are doing an excellent job in not only advancing themselves, but also advancing the communities and the organizations around them. This city, Chicago, has brought to us many good leaders over the years. Over all these 12 years, we've been seeing stories of hard work, inspiration, dreams come true, leadership, and many more things. I want to say thank you to our sponsors. Those sponsors have been with us for many years, and we are very grateful of the support that they have given to Latino Leaders Maestro Awards. Southwest Airlines, that airline that takes us wherever we go to profile and interview leaders. Thank you. BMW, great car company, also taking us to places and supporting us with selecting people that are driven to lead. And as many other years, San Agustin College, a great organization, a great institution for educating young people, especially Latinos, not only here, but in many other regions now. So with that, I want to welcome you again to the 2020 Maestro Awards in Chicago, and let's see the stories of our leaders. Thank you very much. Leadership is a very important part of everyone's character. Leaders show the way. Leaders are visionary. Leaders are the ones who set the example for others to follow. This year, we have a fantastic story of leadership. This story of leadership is about a woman who could understand the importance of service to others. Her own character and her own personality traits was able to advance, not only bringing benefits for her career, but for others. So tonight, I'm very proud that the Latino Leaders Maestro Award, Chicago in 2020, in the category of leadership, is going to Susana Mendoza.
Jorge, thank you for your service to the Latino community, especially for all you do to connect leaders and inspire our future. Thank you for bringing us together to celebrate such important leaders in the Chicago community. Congratulations to this year's award recipients. I'm Laura Nieto, Director of Community Outreach for Southwest Airlines, and it is a pleasure to be here with you all. I'll start by saying that we miss you. It's great to be able to engage with you, even if virtually. Southwest Airlines and Latino leaders have been strong partners for many years, and we have enjoyed the way they connect us to you, our loyal customers. As you can imagine, business is tough for Southwest Airlines right now, but we have a history of overcoming adversity, and we are putting what we call our warrior spirit to work. We fought our way through challenges even before our first flight took off in 1971, and we will fight our way through the unprecedented situation we're in today. But this is not the time to get into specifics on the state of our business. What I do want you to know is that safety is our first priority, and we want you to feel safe when you choose to fly again. We've instituted new protocols known as the Southwest Promise. And promise is a big word, and one that we're intentional in using. The Southwest Promise includes things like around-the-clock aircraft cleaning procedures, face mask requirements for customers and employees, modified boarding procedures, blocking enough seats on every flight to leave the middle seat open through October 31st. Most importantly, we are making this experience safe for our people and for you, our customers. We are ready to fly again, and we will be here for you when you are. Right now, let's celebrate a deserving leader in our community. Susana Mendoza was sworn in as Illinois Controller on December 5, 2016, after running for office on a platform of prioritizing the most vulnerable residents at a time when the state had gone without a budget for more than 2 years. In her first year, Mendoza brought together members of both parties to pass the Debt Transparency Act, which for the first time provides residents and legislators with the monthly accounting of the debts owed by every state agency. Though the governor vetoed the legislation, Republican and Democratic members of the House of Representatives unanimously overrode the veto. A second bipartisan vote in favor in the Illinois Senate was nearly unanimous. During a time of historic fiscal crisis, Mendoza has been an advocate for stability, comprehensive budget solutions, and open and transparent financial reporting. Mendoza is a trailblazer when it comes to women in politics. She was the first Hispanic independently elected to statewide office in Illinois after her historic win as the first woman elected city clerk in Chicago in 2011. Mendoza was elected to the Illinois House of Representatives in 2000 as the youngest member of the Illinois General Assembly and served 6 terms, representing communities in Chicago's South Side, including the neighborhood in which she was born. In the General Assembly, Mendoza was recognized for her leadership and legislation on social services, education, law enforcement, job creation, and animal welfare. In 2011, Mendoza was elected Chicago City Clerk, taking charge of an office responsible for more than $100 million in annual revenue. Controller Mendoza is championing a package of transparency legislation advancing through the state legislature. Among those items is Mendoza's Truth in Hiring bill, which requires governors to report all their employees on the governor's payroll instead of concealing them in other state agency payrolls. Both houses of the legislature passed the bill to overwhelming bipartisan veto-proof majorities. Both then as a clerk and now as controller, Mendoza has worked to make government more open, accountable, and transparent. And that is something to celebrate. Southwest Airlines is honored to present this award to Controller Mendoza.
I am the proud daughter of Mexican immigrants, Joaquin and the original Susana Mendoza, who came from Mexico, many years ago, I'd say probably around 50 years ago. I was born here in the United States of America in Chicago, specifically the city of Chicago. My oldest brother was born in Mexico, in Poza Rica, Veracruz. I was the second born in the U.S. because when my parents came over, they brought my brother, but then eventually had my brother Carlos, who's the second in the family and the first born here in the United States. And then I came soon after, about a year and a half later. I was born in 1972, so that ages me. I'm 48 now. But I grew up for part of my life in this beautiful neighborhood called Little Village, La Villita in Chicago, on the near southwest side of the city. We lived there, but while it was a very vibrant and beautiful community, it was experiencing what unfortunately today still is the case, significant gang activity and gang violence. And my parents were always worried about us. I spent probably the first 7 going on 8 years of my life there. I remember things like never being able to play outside of my house in the front. I was only allowed to play in my backyard. Our block in particular had a lot of gang activity. And so, I remember very clearly what it felt like to be afraid to walk to school. And those were things that I think so many kids have grown up with, and unfortunately in parts of our city and in many cities across the country, there's many kids that still feel that. I benefited from 2 loving and well-intentioned parents who were incredibly hardworking and set that work ethic example for me, and who valued education for their kids, right? And who instilled that in myself and my 2 brothers. So that's how I grew up. When people say that, I'm successful and as a Latina and all that, I would say that that's really great, but I really have no reason not to be successful, because I did have the benefit and the luxury of having 2 parents in my household who were committed to making sure that their kids grew up safe and had a good education. And so I felt that I owed it to myself and to my parents to be able to repay the sacrifices that they made for us by being hardworking, by caring about others, and by being successful and kind of carrying our family's name as high as possible. So that's kind of how I grew up. The other thing about how I grew up is that when I first moved to Woodridge, Illinois, I thought I had always wanted to be a ballerina. I used to well, it's interesting. I wanted to be a ballerina, and I also at one point wanted to be an NFL football player. And I was this tiny little thing. I mean, I'm not that big today, I'm 5'3". But I wanted to be a ballerina, and then at one point I wanted to be a NFL football player, because I was watching TV with my dad, and there was this football game going on, and I saw these people just tackling each other. I remember telling my dad, I want to do that. I want to play that. And my father, who's this Mexican man, this big Mexican man, he says to me, okay, well, but you have to eat all your food. You never finish all your food at dinner, and you have to do these things if you want to grow up big and strong and be able to play in the NFL someday. So I thought, okay. The reason I share this story is because clearly I was never going to play in the NFL. But I grew up in a household where me saying out loud that someday I wanted to play in the NFL was not something that was thrown out the window, right? It was something that my dad said, okay, well, you've got to work really hard and you have to eat all your food and vegetables. He always made me believe, as did my mom, that I could do anything and that there was only myself that would get in the way of being successful. So when I was in college, I never ever thought I would be in politics someday. When I was growing up as a kid, I never thought I'd be in politics someday. I had been inspired, though, over my lifetime by certain people that weren't necessarily political, but they were very active, right? Socially active. When I was little in Little Village and going to the Boys and Girls Club, which is where I learned to swim, it was my safe haven from the violence in the community. There was not an instructor, but I don't know if she actually worked for the park district or she was a volunteer, but whatever. She was one of the counselors. And I think her name I know it was Cookie, but I don't know her last name. I think it was Perez, but not for sure. But Cookie, I was 6 years old and completely inspired by Cookie. And Cookie made me feel like I could do anything and that the gangs, were nothing, and that, to be a part of that was not the direction you ever wanted to go, but to be able to overcome that, even though our neighborhood had so much of it. And she made a little 6-year-old believe that that I mattered, right? Along with my parents, right? But I was getting this external person who could just critique you or bully you to actually inspire me as a little kid. And so I'm a big believer in the Boys and Girls Clubs, but primarily because of the people that they recruit to help other kids. And so that was my first recollection of an outside person who is socially active, right? Who believed in little kids and was mentoring them and inspiring them. And I always thought, someday I want to be like Cookie. Cookie is so cool. Like, to me, Cookie was the epitome of coolness. So that always stayed with me throughout my whole life. And I thought, like, I don't like politics. My parents are from Mexico. They didn't trust the political system. Part of the reason why they're here, right? Or why they came here. And my whole life I grew up with my parents telling me that politicians were all bad, you can't trust them. So we weren't necessarily a household that was all about getting involved civically. But I didn't consider public service politics, right? I considered it a cookie. cookie who was inspiring me as a little girl to be as great as I could be. And so when we escaped the violence, and then I had this pleasure and privilege of growing up in a safe environment, even though my parents, just to be clear, they were the furthest thing from rich. I mean, we were as middle to low middle class as possible. My parents worked multiple jobs. So the sacrifices were very real. And as a kid, you kind of grow up with it, thinking, I want to be able to pay that back, right? And you pay it back by paying it forward, by, number one, making your parents proud in everything you do, but then also by making an impact on society. And I remember thinking, Cookie definitely made an impact on me. And someday, as I got older, I especially realized this, right? Like when you're a little kid, you're just kind of in the moment. But as I was in high school and we'd come back, every single neighborhood, even though we didn't live in a little village, we were still coming back to buy our groceries, because when we moved to Woodridge, there were no Latinos. As I got older, I started to notice that, we were still coming into Little Village to get haircuts, to buy our groceries, to get the tortillas, the frijoles, the carne asada, right? All that good stuff del carnicero, not from, your grocery store with pre-wrapped meat. I still can't get it like that. I have to go to the carnicero. But my point here is that, over time, as I got older, even though we had never lost this connection with the neighborhood because we kept coming in and people kept seeing us, and the store, the carnicero knew us by name and all this, as I got older, I realized that I could go back into a safe environment, right? I had this ability to see what I didn't have to grow up in with the violence and go back to a totally safe environment. And that almost gave me a guilt complex, if you want to think about it that way. I felt like I had an obligation to come back to my neighborhood as soon as I graduated college. And I didn't think about it in college as pursuing politics. I felt it was more of a commitment to public service, to be the cookie for the next generation of kids that still live in that neighborhood. I don't want to be a unicorn. It's been really great that I've been the first woman ever elected city clerk in Chicago. When I was elected to the legislature, I was the youngest member in the chamber at the time. And when I became controller for the state of Illinois, I became the first Hispanic, male or female, to win statewide office independently as controller, in any position statewide. And that's all great, but that makes me kind of a unicorn, and I don't like being a unicorn. I'd love to be surrounded by more Latinas, particularly I'll say Latinas, but Latinos too, right? But my point is, there are so many of us now in the country, yet our numbers are so completely unmatched to where our potential and where our actual lives are. I mean, 32 million people now Hispanics are eligible to vote in this next presidential election. Yet where is our representation in local, state, or national office? It's still a tiny minority given our population and our potential. So, as a Latina, I'd love to see more people come up the ranks. I'm very excited to be a part of this organization called HOPE, Hispanas Organized for Political Equality. It's actually based out of Los Angeles. And they have a binational fellowship that I'm a part of that we have this cohort, if you want to think about it, with Latinas from across the United States, so in elected offices, both at the local, state, and even national level. And then with the binational fellowship is with our counterparts in Mexico. So we bring these two groups together in once a year, actually twice, once in the summer and then again in November in Mexico for La Ciudad de las Ideas in Puebla. And we kind of talk about all the challenges that we have. And there's these, if you think about it from the perspective that these cohorts are so important, these type of groups are so important in creating a bench, right? A bench of people that can come up and play in the majors, if you want to think about it that way, on the varsity level, of women who have already broken through these glass ceilings, who feel like unicorns, but when we're all in one room, we're like, oh my gosh, we're all the same, right? We all have similar challenges, and collectively, the power that we have to potentially influence another generation is huge. Singularly, I mean, it's not that powerful, right? So to be able to bring these women together, as HOPE does, really encourages us to be able to put our talents together and then figure out how we can create this massive network across the country to inspire and train other Latinas to step up and run for public office. I'm very, very, very much in love with my family. I'm so lucky. I married the love of my life, my husband David, who he and I actually went to high school together. He was a quarterback of the football team. Yep, I was a captain of the soccer team, but we never dated in high school. We were just really good friends. And then we reconnected at our 10-year reunion just by saying hello to each other. You know, you're kind of wondering, oh, I wonder what David Sostek looks like. How's he doing? But not thinking anything would ever come of it. And then we said hello, had fun that night, you know, all got together with friends, and then that was it. We never talked or emailed or anything. We did not stay in touch for the 10 years after high school or another 9 years after our reunion. So 19 years later, fast forward, I'm now a state representative. I was a state representative when at my 10-year reunion, but like I'm still a state representative at this point. And David had moved back to Chicago from Boston. He had been working in different states, you know, since high school. He had just moved back to Chicago, and he heard about a fundraiser that I was having at this fun little bar in Wicker Park, and he reached out to me on Facebook for the first time and said, hey, I heard you're having this event. I'd love to reconnect. Can I come? And I'm like, you better come, you know, so it was just fun. I was thinking my high school buddy, but then when I saw him, I was like, ooh, he is a cutie, you know, and he was single and I was single, and the rest is history, right? So we now have a little David because of that, and well, not because of that night, let's just be clear, but yes, as a result of reconnecting and getting married, and our son David is now 7. He is awesome. He's the light of our lives. And we have, you know, we're here in my home, which we love being in as much as possible. And the hardest part, I would say, of my job as controller is when I have to travel, which is quite a bit because I need to stay in touch with what's happening across the state, and I love that. So on one hand, I really love that part. On the other hand, it's heartbreaking because I hate not being home with our son and with my husband. I think the best way that I can continue to be passionate about my job, really in love with my job, is to be in love with my household and my family and feel that support network every day when I come home. If I have a tough day out there, to walk through this door and have another tough day would be unbearable, right? I can have a tough day out there, and then I walk through here and it's like, I'm so happy to see my family again. Oh, thank you so much. This is such an incredible honor to receive this. On behalf of all of the amazing people that I get to represent, certainly the Latino community, and as a Latina here in Illinois, I want to say thank you. I accept this on behalf of all of the people that I represent. And I also want to say congratulations and felicidades to all of the other honorees for this very special award. It's my pleasure to receive it, and I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you.
Some leaders are very good in understanding the culture of the organizations and corporations. That is why we have the category of professional achievement. Those leaders who understand how to move, how to make progress, how to develop and advance every task they have. It is our honor this year to present the 2020 Maestro Award in Chicago for professional achievement to Juan Luciano.
Hi Juan, Deborah here. Congratulations, surprise, surprise. Listen, Juan, I'm so thrilled to have the opportunity to wish you congratulations on the Latino Leaders Maestro Award. Perfectly named for you, actually, because you are indeed a maestro, and it has been a pleasure working alongside you for these past almost 5 years now at Archer Daniels Midland. We couldn't be prouder of you. Felicitaciones por este premio.
I'm originally from Argentina, as you know, Jorge, and I come from a family of, half of my family have been lawyers for many generations, and half of the family have been farmers. also for many generations. And so don't ask me why I end up being an engineer, but that's how life works sometimes. I always, from very beginning, have a lot of passion for learning. I think my mother was very tough in that. I always have the story. My father passed away when I was a kid, so we moved to live with my grandparents. And I always remember one day I came from school, and my grandparents at the dinner table asked, "How did it go today?" And I got a B plus in an exam. So I said I got the B plus, and typical grandparents, "Oh, you're so great," and whatever. And my mom leaned to me and she said, "What happened?" That was the kind of standard, it was like you didn't get an A, so B plus is like, it doesn't get the recognition, it gets a what happened. And I think that always made me think that, I was an A kind of student and I needed to aspire to that. So sometimes we underestimate the expectations of people, what they do to you in terms of sometimes pressure, but also your confidence. And I always, from the very beginning, I thought, well, I'm an A student, so that's what I expected from myself to a certain degree. But that's the early memory I have, that nothing short of an A was good enough for my mom, I guess. I started as a salesperson in Argentina. So they wanted to start technical sales of products, so they wanted masters in engineers. That's what I have, a master in engineers. So they were looking for that. So they talked about training and they talked about international possibilities and all that, and that was appealing to me as a young person. So, and also to be candid, Jorge, in sales they give you company cars, and I didn't have company car at that point in time, and that felt a big thing for me at that time. So so I did sales, then I did the regular progression marketing manager. So in Brazil I was sales and marketing manager. Then I became marketing manager for the Latin America area, and then I became marketing manager for the Americas here in the headquarters. Then I became business leader, business manager, business president, and then then I did executive vice president of several divisions. Then they moved me in different divisions, and Dow, I'm forever grateful to Dow, because they have a system to develop young potentials that once they identify you, they put you into for you to get early on in your career all the experiences. So to run an unprofitable business, to run a large profitable business, to run a specialty business, to run a turnaround, to run a startup. So they give you sometimes at the expense of the company, because most of the time you're learning. I'm not sure how much are you delivering, but they put a lot of investment in me. So a lot of good leaders and bad leaders, to be honest. Sometimes you learn more about life and yourself from the bad bosses than from the good bosses. But so I have a lot of people that help me along the way. So I'm very thankful for that. Yeah, the thing that fails you the most sometimes in a long career. I spent 25 years in Dow, and then 10 wonderful years in ADM. Now my current passion is that sometimes trusting yourself kind of ebbs and flows over the years, as they give you more assignments, or sometimes you feel sometimes undeserving of the responsibilities that people give you. And I think in that sense, my wife most of the time has been the biggest supporter and sounding ground, if you will, that you can go back and with somebody that, I mean, we've been together since we are 17 years old, so I'm 52, so imagine that. If somebody knows me, she is the one that can set me straight, whether I'm getting too ahead of myself or too shy in confidence, if you will. So I think that has been the issue. I would say I never had a contingency plan. Jorge, I'm always saying that in order for you to do a good job, you need to be willing to lose your job. And I always did my job to the best of my abilities. And I always am very forward onto what I believe should be done. And I explain it to everybody. and the board, my employees, and you know, my colleagues and my bosses. And if they think of something else, you know, I can see myself into doing it or not, or they need somebody else. So I try to take all the drama away. You know, I think that there are things in life that are very dramatic. Your career it shouldn't be one of those. I always took my career, Jorge, as I have two passions: my desire to learn, as I was telling you before, and my desire to make a contribution. I want to be useful to the teams that invest in me, that believe in me. So those are the two things that I look. So at times I'm making a bigger contribution than maybe I'm learning, and at times I'm learning a lot and not making enough of a contribution. And hopefully over time, you know, both things even out and it becomes a good deal for everybody around you. But you know, maybe you think my life is too simplistic, but I think, you know, I try to distill life to something that I can, as you said, maintain with consistency for many, many years. And when it gets too complicated, you know, sometimes it gets too difficult to execute. You have to realize I have a privileged perspective on sometimes those differences, because by the time I came to the US, you know, I was already vice president. So I had a certain position that allowed me certain power and certain deference, if you will. So I never felt those aggressions, if you will, that sometimes people are exposed to, like other people that I can sympathize with. But you get the microaggressions, if you will. So you open your mouth and people, before telling you nice to meet you, they say, where are you from? What they are telling you is that you have a strong accent, you know. I mean, that's the elegant way to say. So sometimes people, you know, if people, you come to the US from Argentina, so you like soccer, what we call soccer here. So when people start talking about college football, they think that I should not be in the conversation. I love college football. My kids went both to Michigan. I've seen 8 years of Michigan football every Saturday. So I love American football. But you know, sometimes people assume those things, that just because you like soccer and you speak with an accent, you know. So I could see how those differences sometimes make you feel excluded or lonely. As I said, I'm the CEO, and very quickly people react and they included me immediately, but I could feel like how if you didn't have the same amount of power, it could feel lonely and it could feel more damaging. So I'm very committed to try to eliminate all those differences and create a sense of inclusiveness and belonging that allows a culture in which everybody can bring their own, whatever their own is, and be themselves without having to think that they need to tiptoe around this or need to think about that or need to, you know, preserve their past or preserve who they are or not being completely open. Because then you never get the full person. And we only get, you know, to live life once. So you want people that come here to work with us, that work 10 hours per day, more time that they are awake with their families, to be completely their own. And I feel a big responsibility for that. So I think in order for you to bring your best self into whatever you do, in order to get to you know, one of those positions, you need to excel at what you do. And the only way to get there is actually to learn yourself. I mean, people always like to think, what do I need to do? I need to do an MBA. What book do I need to read? And to be honest, intellectually, what I do is not that sophisticated or complicated. I was probably solving bigger equations when I was 20-something studying engineering than what I'm doing now in ADM. It's the emotional baggage, it's the emotional stamina that takes, the resilience that takes to you know, to be a little bit contrarian, if you will. When your team is too excited about it, you need to be the prudent one. When the team is too down, you need to bring them up. Is that ability to come back every day after a failure, after something doesn't quite work the way you expected, after you have, I mean, last week we were having fires in California close to one of our labs. We were having 2 hurricanes hitting our terminals, and we were having a resurgence of COVID in Europe. And you need to deal with all those things, and you say, why? I mean, what this have to do with running the corporation or doing a strategy? And you still need to do it. And I think that, to me, is learning yourself. You're gonna find out what you should be doing, because it's not clear. Maybe there are people that are absolutely convinced from very early on, I want to be a doctor, I want to save lives. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted a good living, I wanted to marry Carolina, I wanted to be able to raise kids. So I never grew up thinking I want to be CEO, I want to be in this industry. I always wanted to do the job in front of me better. I wanted to learn and do that. But in the process, I learned myself. I was a terrible commercial person, as I said before, so I went more into strategy. I passed on opportunities for improvement because I could have get into a promotion faster, but I knew I couldn't do a good job there and I wouldn't be helpful to people. So I think my advice will be spend time on self-reflection, trying to learn yourself. All the other things will come because people are selfish. Everybody wants to put you to work to your maximum capacity, but they need to understand what is your maximum capacity. What are you good at? So a company will like to put you in the place of highest responsibility, but they need to know what that is. And if you don't know yourself, it's very difficult for somebody else to know before you. So I think people sometimes spend too much time, as I say, trying to learn externalities. I think that we need to learn how to be better ourselves, better human beings in general. They will get you all the positions you want. Thank you, and listen, this is a completely undeserved recognition. If I accept it, it's only on behalf of all the people that helped me to get here, to be honest. I mean, whether my wife, my mom, my supervisors, my teams, that make me better every day. So it's nothing related to me. But thank you for that.
There are leaders whose passion is helping others, not only working for themselves and advancing their own careers, but they understand that by doing that, they are also working to advance the community and to support the surrounding communities and society in which they live. The 2020 Maestro Award for Community Service in Chicago goes to Jorge Perez.
Few people can claim that they have achieved the American dream. I have a friend whom I admire and who has achieved more than some of us will achieve in our entire lifetime. Having grown in Chicago, he learned to work hard as a boy in a family business. His family business and values of hard work, honesty, and dedication have made him into a community and business leader who has always worked very hard in the best interest of others. His dedication, hard work, and strategic mindset formed the basis for his great success. Today, he is the executive director of one of the most influential organizations in our country that provides development opportunities for Latino construction business and business leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to present to you a friend, a leader in our community, and a true maestro, Jorge Perez, Executive Director of HACIA. Jorge, felicidades por un mérito bien merecido. Feliz mes de la Hispanidad.
My name's Jorge Perez, and I was originally born in a town called Matehuala in San Luis Potosí. And my family, we came here, well, my parents had come here in the late 50s, early 60s, and then by the time we were born, for some reason they would go back and have me and my 2 older sisters, and came here early 70s. We actually purchased a home in South Chicago. And my father actually got a job at the local steel mill called U.S. Steel Southworks. And as most immigrant families do, you know, just do one thing, you start doing other things. Lucky enough to buy a building where had a commercial storefront on the first floor. So my mother opened up una tienda de abarrotes, and then my father, when he would, on his free time, because he was a panadero in Mexico, he decided to add a panaderia aspect to our tienda. So we lived upstairs and operated the store. It was almost like the family farm of the 70s and 80s, and actually for a lot of decades if you think about it. And so we grew up in the store, and I think that's where I developed a good work ethic of, because you can't really oppose your parents and when they tell you to do something, and so we had to work the store. I learned how to make pan at a very early age, and it would help out my dad. And actually, what was interesting is as the late 70s came around, early 80s, you see the structural changes in the economy where the large manufacturers, steel base of the country really was changing. It affected the southeast side, South Chicago directly. So in the midst of all that, my father was still one of the fortunate folks at U.S. Steel who stayed there until they closed. Then they transferred into U.S. Steel in Gary, Indiana. But we still lived there in South Chicago. And what was interesting is that we saw all the economic downturn, social problems that happened as a result of the economic base leaving the area. But and I think those were probably big critical moments, sort of in my own personal development. You see all this change negatively affecting the neighborhood and families, and we because we knew all of them. Big impact on me. I've got two boys, and when we got married, we moved into the apartment of the business, and it was fascinating because even up until le pedí la mano, I actually had my parents and her parents meet, right, and it's a big deal. But I had been telling my wife that I remember she would come in the store when she was a kid, and she'd say, "You're lying, knock it off," right? I said, "No, you did." And she would ignore me and just blow it off. Well, when her parents showed up that day, they walked up and the mom says, "Yeah, we used to buy pan here. I used to bring it here when you were little." And I just looked at my wife, I said, "I told you," right? Here at Hacia, what I've come to learn is that, and what I've applied here is that any individual or company joins an association for three reasons. You want to be a member, you need an advocate, or you need some services. And so membership advocacy services are what we focus on here. And for our members, not necessarily every member gets one of each. They focus on one or the other. Maybe they just need an advocate, or maybe they need someone to refer them to a larger company, so there's a member service there, or they need some technical assistance or training, and that's what we do. We do it in conjunction with St. Augustine's Institute for Workforce Excellence. But coming here and being able to apply that lens and really rebuild the entire brand of Hacia, what brought me really the interest here was the group had been around, it's been around 41 years. And there's a wonderful legacy of the members of Hacia being involved in just about every large capital project in Illinois, from the Dan Ryan to Soldier Field, the more marquee ones, even Wrigley Field redevelopment our members have been involved in, to schools, right, to libraries, to housing, from affordable all the way through to market rate to luxury housing. Our members have been involved in all of those, and it's very, very exciting because that's a long legacy. And after 40 years, you see a generational shift, and you see a lot of the younger individuals starting their own business, getting involved in Hacia. And so, we really wanted to focus on building up the membership. And in fact, this year, we've actually hit the highest mark of members and in revenue for the organization in our history. And we've really expanded our reach out to the western suburbs and northern suburbs as well. As we all know, Chicago isn't the port of entry for Latinos necessarily in Illinois. They're moving up into Lake County, the northern suburbs. We're further west. And so we're increasing our presence out in those areas. And the one in further west has been accomplished because of our partnership with St. Augustine as well. And we're really excited about being able to provide technical assistance out there. But one thing that I've done is combine a couple of entities of HACIA. We have HACIA, the membership association, the advocacy group, and we have the HACIA Scholarship and Education Foundation. And when I came aboard, the education fund was dormant, and rebooted that entity to say, how do we continue to raise dollars and award scholarships to Latinos who are studying architecture, engineering, or construction management, and then add more to it, provide more dollars, make it a $5,000 scholarship each, and then really tie all of our training and technical assistance through the foundation. And that's been sort of the restructuring that we did here. But on the HACIA side, making sure that members are engaged, members find value. You know, it's the same adage of when people used to come to my store, they could have gone to the store down the street. People have a choice. We all have choices. How do we differentiate ourselves? Like the basic business principles. There's an association business understanding that I've come to understand, and that's really helped the organization. And we were able to really grow, like I said, the membership. And on the advocacy front, our relevance in the larger community has been really exciting because you know, keeping a business going and sort of expanding your reach and your relevance are really the key markers that I believe for an association. And so we've been able to pass laws, move bills in the state legislature and the city council, the county, to really look at opening up more opportunities for not only our members, but for other minority women businesses. And it's been really exciting because if you think back 10 years ago, we were just coming out of that recession. Most of our members do work in the public sector. There wasn't a lot of funding for projects back then. Yes, some of our members do work in the residential end, but these large capital projects actually help fund, and there's a multiplier effect obviously in the rest of the economy. Chicago and the southeast side, the demographic migration for Mexican Americans had been to go further southeast into what they call the east side or the Hegewisch community, or even the southern suburbs of Chicago or northwest Indiana. So as you progress in your sort of economic status, or generationally, you move further south. We had an opportunity to purchase a larger supermarket in an area that just was becoming more Latino, and this was the late 80s. So my father actually got laid off and took an opportunity to just bet the house, buy this bigger supermarket. We had a good 20 years experience already running a store, very active in a major arterial street. So we understood a lot about the grocery business, made this big leap, and it didn't work out. And it didn't work out because we actually were a little, I like to say a little too early in terms of the demographic changes. That community was slowly changing from predominantly ethnic white, Serbian, Croatian, Irish, Polish, to Hispanic. And you know, the barrier of racism was real obvious at that point because they simply didn't want to come to the store because of who we were, even though we had successes in a neighborhood not 2 miles away from them. But we started, you know, we hunkered down, we tried to do the best we could to operate it, but it didn't work out. And there's a big lesson there too, is sometimes you can work as hard as you can do everything right, but sometimes things don't work out, and that's just life sometimes. And luckily we still had our old building. We had shut down that store, and then luckily, by the grace of God, my father gets called back to U.S. Steel in Gary, and then he does another 20-something years there. And so I didn't want to take that big failure as sort of the end of it. So by then I had graduated high school, and I wanted to reopen the store. And because it was in a very key location in South Chicago, but my father was very adamant. He said, well, you're still going to go to college. I still want you to get an education. I can't help you pay for it, but you're going to have to figure it out, which I've come to find out is a very common theme amongst, you know, immigrants, first-time college students, which was, you know, it was a good challenge for me. But I remember going to our vendors, our suppliers, to the grocery store. I must have been like 17, and just telling them, hey, we're going to reopen the store. Can I get a line of credit? And luckily, one of the vendors, the wholesalers, did give me a line of credit. I think the drive comes from that big lesson of my dad betting the house and then losing it, because in the midst of all that, no one helped us. We didn't know where to go. There wasn't the resources out there to say, you can get a loan here, you can get an SBA loan here, or you can get some technical assistance here. I mean, my dad was a 6th grade education panadero steelworker, and steelworker you just need to be strong as hell, and it works out great. And this is the bygone era, but there was nobody there. And there was local chambers, and unfortunately those local chambers really didn't provide what we were looking for. And so that really drove me, and it really drove me understanding that racist interaction that I had against us because we were Hispanics moving into a non-Hispanic neighborhood really was part of the drive, because they weren't necessarily, very welcoming, and that's really true elsewhere, right? So this opportunity here helps me see companies who bet the house every day, and they worry about all that, and they have hundreds of employees that they have to deal with, and seeing new companies come in and deal with it. I understand that aspect of it. We were making pan and groceries, they're doing concrete and steel, and it's different. That dynamic is still there. I want to be able to be an advocate and help and provide the resources, and that's the drive. And I think one of the challenges with these associations is that if you don't understand the mission of the group, then you really shouldn't be doing this. And I understand the mission. It's a mission-based organization, and that's really been critical in sort of driving me. Well, I'm very humbled for this award from Latino leaders. I really appreciate it. Your Maestro Award means a lot to me. It's great to be recognized. There's always a lot of hard work in what we do here at Hacia, and what I've done throughout my career. So I appreciate the recognition, very humbled by it, and wish you all well. Thank you.
Drive is one of the most important characteristics of leaders. That's the force behind their passion and behind the actions they do. Especially in young leaders, in emerging leaders, those who are already showing what kind of future and what kind of advancing they can bring to their communities, to their organizations, to their causes. The Ultimate Drive Award is in partnership with BMW, which we Latino leaders were very proud of having. And this year, the Ultimate Drive Award is going to Miguel Blancarte.
Hi, my name is Keisha Townsend, and it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of BMW of North America. At BMW, we are committed to showing our support for diversity and inclusion. More specifically, we're proud to continue our partnership with Latino Leaders magazine, whose mission remains critical in debunking myths and combating negative stereotypes against people of color. This year has been especially difficult for so many due to the pandemic, but it's in the most difficult of times that true leaders rise, especially for a community who has resiliency built into their DNA. Tonight, we are excited to honor Miguel Blancarte with the BMW Ultimate Drive Award in recognition of the work he is doing with CORE to support community relief efforts in times of crisis in the Chicago community. Congratulations, Miguel, and keep up the important and impactful work that you're doing. Thank you.
I was born and raised here in Chicago's Little Village neighborhood in the Southwest Side. And growing up, it wasn't an easy neighborhood to grow up in, but for me it was community. Both of my parents came from Mexico, arrived from Mexico, and with very little education, both of them were working. And so in my household, it was my older brother, my sister, and my younger sister. So the four of us, we grew up very independent. But one of the things about that was that the community itself really taught me, I feel. Yes, I learned at home and I learned at school, but I also learned in my community. And I learned what it was to be community, what it was to be Latino, what it was to speak Spanish in this community. Again, growing up, it wasn't a very easy neighborhood, things have definitely gotten better because individuals have continued to come back into this neighborhood and improve the quality of life of others, which I'm really grateful for that. And that's actually one of the reasons why I continue to live in this neighborhood, because for me, I am a byproduct of my community and I want to improve it. And so me being here is extremely important. Right after Brown, I came back to Chicago and I was co-directing the litigation department for an immigration law firm. I started working there as a summer intern before starting Brown. The attorney I was working for during that summer, she said she really enjoyed the work that I was doing if I would join her during my school breaks. I said, yeah, most definitely. Again, being a first generation American, going to Brown, it was a way for me to come home during my school breaks, earn money, put some money in my pocket, and go back, because I know I couldn't ask my mom and dad for money. And so, I was working at the law firm. I got a really big promotion my sophomore year during Brown, so where I was flying back and forth to Chicago every 3 to 4 weeks for work. And after I finished, I decided to continue working there. It was dealing with the litigation department. So those cases that we had to go before the immigration court, before the Board of Immigration Appeals, and even sued the federal government a couple of times before the U.S. 7th Circuit Court of Appeals as well. And so shortly after that, I had always been involved in politics in the sense that I would volunteer and canvass and help individuals get out the vote. For me, one of the things being in this community that I did realize is the importance of making sure that you have good elected individuals and that you have resources in your community. And so volunteering in different campaigns was always something that I did. But I also received an opportunity to be a campaign manager for now Congressman Chuy Garcia, who's a mentor of mine. And I was managing a re-election campaign for Commissioner Garcia at the time, Cook County Commissioner. And to me, that really allowed me to experience what it was to mobilize a community on a larger scale, right? And I say community, but I mean that on a district level, if you will. That's really when I saw the importance of coalitions too. Something that I had read so much about, putting it into context now. And one of the really great things about being with Chuy on a daily basis and being in communication with him was that I got to know Chuy and I got to know more about what he stands for and why he stands for that. I got to know more about I learned more about the history of Chicago and the importance of unions and the importance of coalitions between the Black and the Brown communities. And I think if we work together, if we unite, then we are really able to bring about change in policies, change in the way individuals are treated as well. I was site director for the City of Chicago core COVID-19 testing facility in Little Village. Right across the street, you can see it from my house, in the parking lot of the elementary that I went to. And first when I found out that they were gonna be there, I showed up because I wanted to volunteer. I wanted to do something. Right? We were living in this pandemic of everyone staying inside, not doing anything. And for me, again, what can I do to help out? One thing led to another, a conversation led to another. I was asked to email them my resume. I was then asked to be the site director. They told me, Miguel, this is your community. You know this community. What better person than for you to lead this effort here? A couple of weeks ago, about a month ago, as site director, I received word that the federal government was going to come into my site they were looking to see what information they can garner in order to help navigate testing on a national scale. So I had the United States Department of Health and Human Services, along with CDC, FEMA, a couple of other folks, the Chicago Department of Public Health, who we're in partnership with. And they were at my site for a period of 2 hours, a little bit over 2 hours, asking me all sorts of questions, everything from testing to community engagement to operations. And it was something that I took pride in knowing that they came to my site, that they wanted to come to my site, that they wanted to talk to me about what I had been doing, right? Because it wasn't only about being able to test over 800 individuals in 6 hours, over 800 individuals for coronavirus in 6 hours. But it was also about the individuals that I was able to bring into the site to get tested, right? Because we want those that are most impacted by coronavirus to get tested, because we want to try to contain this as much as possible, and people need to come out to get tested. And the way that I approach that with communicating information and reaching out, working with community-based organizations, was something that was noticed. So that's one of the reasons why they came out to my site. And shortly thereafterward, they CORE, Community Organized Relief Effort, they asked me if I wanted to take a larger role. And so now I'm the Regional Director for Community Engagement, Health Equity, and Partnerships. And again, this is about being able to bring COVID-19 testing to those most impacted, but also for me, it's about bringing health equity to them. It's not only about the vaccine. For me, it's about what other resources we can provide these individuals, because again, these are individuals that have been broken because of this coronavirus. There has been a lot of underlying systemic issues that have negatively impacted their quality of life, and there were systems that were already exacerbated, but this really only broke a lot of those. And so there's a lot more need, where for me, health equity is not only about providing the COVID-19 testing, but it's also about linking them up with other resources. Can we bring in flu vaccine now that we have flu season in Chicago? Can we also bring back to school vaccines for children? Can we provide food distribution? Can we connect others, individuals who may qualify for things such as SNAP? Can we help enroll them in the census, help them fill out the census, or let them know the importance of filling it out, making sure that we save lives, that we contain the virus, and that we save lives, and helping the Black and the Brown communities is extremely important and monumental in getting that across. I was born at close to 10 pounds, and year after year, I was very heavy. At Salcedo, at the elementary school, every year I was the heaviest in any classroom. And weight was something that I always struggled with. And I remember trying all of the different diets, right? Because God, growing up and experiencing bullying, experiencing just a lot of harsh treatment from others because of the way that I looked, because of my weight, I was trying out all of the different diets. So everything from Atkins diet to South Beach diet to over-the-counter medications, whatever it may be, I tried them all. A couple of years ago, after finishing Brown and being back in Chicago, I went to my doctor November one year, shortly after Thanksgiving, and he said, "Miguel, the route that you're living, you're not gonna live past your mid-40s." And I always disliked going to the doctor because I knew that they were always gonna mention my weight. But this last time around, when he told me that really just awoke me. It woke me up, and it made me realize that if I continued going this way, I was not only doing a disservice to myself, to my goals and my dreams that I have, but also more importantly to my family and to my community, because that meant that I would not be here after my mid-40s. So essentially my doctor was telling me that I had already lived more than half my life. And for the following year, as a New Year's resolution, I didn't make it a resolution to lose weight because I didn't think I was going to, because my prior diets had said that I wouldn't be able to. But I made it a point to live a healthier lifestyle, and that was my New Year's resolution. And little by little, on my own, via healthy eating and exercise, in a matter of 8 months, I was able to lose 180 pounds. In a matter of 10 months, I was able to lose over 200 pounds, and I've been able to keep it off. And I actually found love. I found a love in running, something that I was never able to do. I never did sports. My favorite thing that I would enjoy doing that was anywhere near sporty was swimming, because it was easy to do. But after losing the weight and in losing the weight, I discovered running and I fell in love with it. My story kind of came out a little bit. The United States Olympic Committee contacted me and they asked me to join Team USA. So now I'm a runner for Team USA as well. And again, doing something like that I never imagined possible at all, running with Team USA across my chest as a first-generation American from La Villita in Chicago's Southwest Side, born to immigrant individuals, is extremely invigorating to me. But that is something that I was able to accomplish because I do live here in the United States, and I was able to do that here. And for me, it is those opportunities, right, to develop and to grow yourself out that I see extremely important. For me, for example, now running is not only something that I love, but it also provides me with health. I run 5 days a week, and I run every morning before going off to work. And it's that time that I'm alone with myself. And yes, I'm doing cardiovascular work, but at the same time, it's allowing me to process my thoughts, and it's allowing me to essentially look at my day, have that time to myself alone to really think about my day. So it's helped me get well in that sense too. I would really like to thank Latino leaders and BMW and the Maestro Awards for receiving this spectacular award. For me, this is an award that has a lot of importance, knowing the value of it. And it is something that I am going to cherish and look to, and it's going to be a reminder to myself to allow myself to keep myself accountable to what it is to be a Latino leader. I also want to thank all of those who have been there for me, who have been mentors and have helped me along the way, to all of those that I've worked with in all of the different capacities, because in my perspective, it really does take a village. More importantly though, I really want to thank my community, because without my community, I wouldn't be here. I want to thank my community for the trust and respect that they have put in me to allow me to help. And again, in that community, I include my mother, my father, my siblings, because without them, I wouldn't be here. Muchísimas gracias, mi mamá y mi papá. Sin sus esfuerzos, sin sus palabras, no podría estar yo aquí. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
So, this has been the 2020 Maestro Awards in Chicago. Great city for Latino leaders. Great leaders as usual. I hope you have enjoyed and also learned from these wonderful stories. We want to say thank you again to our sponsors, Southwest Airlines, BMW, and San Agustin College. 3 great organizations that have been supporting Latino leaders for many years. And with that, we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much for watching.